2025 was the year American television basically had an earthquake. So today, we're going to dig into the rubble and really try to understand the political pressure, the huge corporate takeovers, and the streaming battles that completely, and I mean completely, reshaped what you see on your screen.
Just think about it for a second. Your local news station, your favorite late-night host. In 2025, these incredibly powerful forces, both in Washington and on Wall Street, were making decisions that hit them directly. This wasn't just some boring business story. Nope, this was a full-on battle for control of the American narrative. And believe me, it changed everything.
So to really get to the bottom of this, we're going to break it down. We'll look at three main battlegrounds: that political pressure cooker, the rise of these massive media empires, and what was pretty much the end game of the streaming wars. Then we'll connect all the dots and see what it really means for you.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the incredible and, frankly, unprecedented pressure campaign that was aimed at broadcasters all year long.
The pressure on media outlets just kept ramping up all year. It kicked off in January with these regulatory threats from the FCC. By the summer, it had exploded into huge multi-million-dollar lawsuits against giants like Paramount. And then, by the fall, you had major high-profile shows literally being pulled off the air. This was no coincidence. It was a crystal-clear pattern showing a direct line between political power and what you were and weren't allowed to watch.
And this pressure campaign didn't just stop with commercial TV. Oh, no. Public broadcasting took a massive, massive hit. We're talking over $1 billion in federal funding cut. For some conservative politicians, this was a long-term goal, and in 2025, they got it done. This directly threatened the very existence of local PBS and NPR stations that, millions of Americans really rely on.
The cancellation of TV's top-rated late-night show sent absolute shockwaves through the entire industry. Now, CBS claimed the decision was all about a drop in ad revenue, but critics and unions like the Writers Guild, they just weren't buying it. They went public, demanding to know if the real reason was political, especially since it happened right after the network's parent company settled that massive lawsuit.
So, this whole political pressure cooker was boiling over at the exact same time as our next theme, a huge consolidation of media ownership. While all these battles were being fought in public, the real war for control was being won behind closed doors in corporate boardrooms.
So here's the thing. This wasn't just about companies getting bigger. It was about shrinking the number of voices out there. A company like Gray Media didn't just expand. They strategically created local duopolies. That's where one single company controls 2, maybe even 3 news stations in the very same town. That means fewer perspectives and way less competition. And this whole consolidation wave hit its absolute peak with the gigantic merger of Skydance and Paramount.
And this is the flip side of all that consolidation. As the giants get bigger and bigger, the smaller players just get crushed. So in 2025, that meant it was the end of the road for everything from the Universal Kids channel to entire local news departments, like the one at KI on TV in California. Viewer choice was just shrinking, one shutdown at a time.
Which brings us to the streaming world, because, wow, the whole era of endless growth and super cheap subscriptions, it came to a screeching halt in 2025.
For years, the game was so simple. How many millions of subscribers can we sign up? But in 2025, Wall Street basically changed the rules of the game. It started demanding actual profits, not just impressive user numbers. And this new strategy? Well, it meant higher prices for you, a lot more ads, and this desperate, frantic search for content that people absolutely had to watch live.
So what's the one thing people still gather to watch live? Sports. Of course, sports. The streamers figured this out and started this crazy, super expensive bidding war. Suddenly, WWE jumped ship to ESPN's news service, the UFC landed on Paramount+, and the WNBA signed a massive new deal. Live sports became the last best weapon to keep subscribers from hitting that cancel button.
And this all led to the big moment I think a lot of us were waiting for: ESPN finally launching its very own streaming service. Now, this wasn't just another app, it was a fundamental shift. It was moving the most valuable content in all of television away from that traditional cable bundle and offering it directly to you, changing how millions of people will watch sports forever.
So, after a year of complete turmoil, with all these shutdowns and mergers and political fights, what does it all really mean for you and your TV?
All right, let's put it all together. You've got intense political pressure coming from the top, you've got fewer and fewer owners in the middle, and you've got this desperate pivot to profit-driven streaming. So what's the result? A media landscape that is way less diverse, much more centralized,
and honestly, more afraid to take creative risks than ever before.
And all of this leaves us with a really critical question. With so few corporate owners and so much political pressure, that line between what's good for business and what's good for a political agenda, it's getting really, really blurry. So the next time you turn on your TV, it's worth asking yourself, who really decided what I get to watch tonight?